today's session is thinking around how to best protect our admin accounts. I'm probably right in thinking that almost everyone on this call is a super admin on a Google domain. Obviously, with all these super admin powers comes great responsibility. These accounts can be used to access, well, in theory, any file or email or do anything on your domain. So very incredibly powerful. So we need to take precautions to manage those accounts, best protect them, and to kind of manage that risk. So Charlie and I have got some tips for you today, which we're going to run through. If anyone's got any questions, please pop up your hands, and we'll happily take those as we go through. So yeah, Abid, absolutely, inner Spider-Man. So our first tip: don't share admin accounts. You really ought to have one admin account per administrator, and the reason for this is it keeps everyone accountable. It makes it easier to audit actions. When you're looking in logs, you know exactly who has made a particular change on the admin console, and you know who to talk to if that's causing a problem. So it's a really good idea not to share admin accounts. Keep your password private, and yeah, keep one admin account per administrator. Do you want to take some, Charlie?
Yeah, so this one's really interesting because you really should, if you have specific processes, like you're using Google Cloud Directory Sync, so you've got Active Directory set up and you're using GCDS to sync into Google Workspace, or you're using Password Sync, create specific admin accounts for those tasks. And the reason for that is that if you use an account which is linked to a specific administrator for that, and actually I was supporting a school recently where this had actually happened. One of their key admin staff had used their personal admin account, if that makes sense, their personal admin account to set up their GCDS and their password sync. That member had staff had then left, and the setup for that sync then failed because of the way that's been set up and that password had been set up. So create specific accounts for those types of tasks so that they're identifiable. You won't run into issues with churn in terms of members of staff leaving, and it means you've got a discrete account for those particular activities. Over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, so I think this is the single most important way of protecting Google accounts, whether that's admin accounts or general staff accounts, and hopefully many of you are already using two-step verification to protect your accounts and your users' accounts. But if you're not, I'd recommend at the very least turning it on your super admin accounts. This will add an extra layer of security to your account, so you're no longer just relying on a password. That extra layer can be anything from a physical security key from a company like YubiKey or your Pixel phone or an Android phone, or it could be a text message or a yes/no prompt on your phone. There's multiple methods you can set up. Some are better than others, and we'll go into that on the next slide in a minute. But I do recommend turning two-step verification on. If your password becomes compromised, it means that an attacker or hacker can't access your account without that second factor. And it's a single best way of protecting Google accounts.
So this one I come across often. We do have a process where we can do security audits of Google Workspace for schools. But this is something that I often encounter because often schools start quite small. They start up with Google Workspace and start using it, and the particular admin is also then using Google Workspace for the typical daily operations. Now, the best practice is not to use super admin accounts and admin accounts for daily operational use, sending mail, using docs, using Meet, and so on. It's best to have your administrator set up with two accounts, one that they use for those admin specific tasks and that they only use for those admin specific tasks, and one that they use for just the general day-to-day stuff, the general work that you would do in Gmail, docs, sheets, and slides, and so on. And the key reason for that is you want to reduce your potential vulnerability to phishing attacks and whaling attacks. Because if you're signed in as a super admin and you click on particular links, you may be giving away information or compromising information within your domain. However, you're going to be less likely to do that if your general use and your most current day-to-day use is actually in an account without those privileges. So it's really important to get that separation. Administrative tasks, use the admin account. Operational tasks, your kind of day-to-day stuff in Gmail docs and so on, use a specific non-admin account for that.
That's a really good point, Charlie. And I think just adding on to that as well is using a super admin account to sign into third-party apps or extensions which might ask for rights from your account, and that's definitely something to avoid on a super admin account. But keep those kind of apps on your normal staff daily use account, and just keep that separation. Absolutely really important. Another important one, and this is around kind of getting notifications from Google, which could be about billing, it could be about security alerts. Everyone would have a primary admin account defined in our admin console. It's also a really good idea to set up a secondary one as well. So just in case that account which has been set up doesn't get signed into very often, you don't want to miss those important notifications. So either having a second account or set up a forwarding rule on that primary account to forward those notifications onto your other admins, just so you're aware of notifications on your domain and nothing gets missed.
Okay, so this is the kind of admin bread and butter one, which is least privilege. Now, it's often the case that it's very handy as a super admin to go in and do stuff because in the admin console, because you can do anything and you can do everything in there. And actually, what we sometimes find is that accounts are being admin accounts are being used to do absolutely everything, changing passwords, updating mail set, just all the activities that you would do, and a super admin account is being used for all of those. Now, it is much more prudent to use admin accounts for specific operational tasks. So if you have staff who are doing typical daily tasks inside the admin console, resetting staff passwords, for example, resetting student passwords and the like, if you have that situation, it's important that you use an appropriate admin role for those members of staff, those admins, that you don't use super admin roles all the time. You don't have a carte blanche admin, super admin, that's your whole IT team are super admins, because that actually gives people far more control and far more power than they probably should have. So it's much better to think about the roles and limiting and restricting the roles that people have so that they can do the work that they have to do. You have that least privilege approach. They have just the number of privileges that they need to do the work that they need, but they don't have more than that. And that then again, it limits your possibilities of attack. It limits the sort of surface area for attacks on your staff, and it means that they're just using the privileges that they need to carry out their operational roles.
Thanks, Charlie. And our last one is around adding recovery options for admin accounts. Now, this is useful if an admin forgets their passwords. What you can do is you can click the Need Help link on the sign-in page, and then Google will send you a new password via phone, text, or email. But to do that, Google needs to know your recovery phone number or email address for that admin account. So to add account recovery information to your account is a really good idea. You want to keep that information on hand for a password reset. So if a super admin can't reset their password using email or phone options, and another super admin isn't available to reset your password, then you can use Google's recovery wizard. To do this, Google will verify your identity and ask you questions about your account. These questions could be things like the date the account was created, original secondary email address which was associated with that account, your Google order number associated with the account. It could be credit card information associated with that account. So it's worth just having a record of that information just to avoid getting locked out. But hopefully you've got other super admins on the system who can reset your password if that ever happens. So now on this slide, Charlie and I just wanted to talk through some of the different options you've got going back to two-step verification. It's like I touched on earlier, some methods are stronger than others. And I think Charlie and I both agreed that the strongest methods, when you say Charlie, is using a physical security key, whether that's something like a YubiKey, or actually if you've got a Pixel phone, that doubles up as a Titan security key.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I mean, I use I have all my accounts linked to my phone. I use that as my key, and it works brilliantly. It's straightforward to do. You can do it over Bluetooth with your device, and it's a really great way to secure your accounts, and the most secure way because you've got that physical key, that physical factor that's there. So absolutely recommend that, and that's really important as well. If we're going to talk on a little bit about the protection program as well a bit later on. So security keys are really important for that too. Yeah, so and the other methods of doing it are there for folks to see. I mean, you may be familiar with the Google Authenticator app. There are other verification code generators available as well. They all work in pretty much the same way. You get a code that from your device, it's generated on your device, and you enter that code. So you just enroll the device. The actual code generators are pretty good. If you get a new device, they all have a migration pathway. So you can easily migrate from your old device to your new device just by scanning a QR code to set up the new device. It works really well. So you don't need to be concerned about stopping the old device and getting a new one.
Yeah, I did that recently. It's just, it gives you a QR code, you scan it on your other phone, and we're all there. Really, really easy.
Yeah, it's very straightforward to transfer across. And then there's the sign-in prompt that folks might be aware of as well. If you've got consumer Gmail, you might be familiar with that too. You can sign in on your device, just get another verification factor on your device.
I think that's probably my favorite method for our staff who use two-step verification, because it works on any phone now. So if you've got the Gmail app on an iOS device, that will also work on there. But it's a really nice, quick method, and it saves having to type in a code. And yeah, I think that's probably my favorite method for staff, just because it's so fast.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. That is, it's a straightforward way to do it. And actually, the next most secure, and I always think it's bizarre that I say this, the next most secure is to print your security codes, your backup codes. So you print your backup codes and then you keep them in a safe place, right? So don't PDF them and put them in your Google Drive, because that kind of defeats the purpose of recovering your account later. But you can print off these backup codes and keep them somewhere secure. So you've got a physical code that you can then sign in with later. If the other methods of authentication aren't available to you for whatever reason, you can then use those backup codes. So that would be the next secure. And then the least secure, Peter?
Well, SMS or a voice call. SMS, it's an old technology now, and it's not foolproof in terms of being hijacked or hacked or spoofed. And plus, someone may get access to, a lot of SMS messages will pop up on your phone, even if your phone is locked. So it's probably be the last resort if I had to use an SMS, but highly recommend security key or the yes no prompt or Google Authenticator as your go-to methods, and have a backup code locked away somewhere safe, just in case you lose access to all those other methods you've got.
And what's really interesting is, and this will be interesting to all the admins on this call, is you can define in Google Workspace which security methods you will accept. So when you enable your two-step verification, what you can do is you can say, I'm going to allow all the methods apart from SMS and voice. And that means that you're getting a slightly more secure deployment than if you allow SMS and voice. So you can actually put that setting into Google Workspace. And then you also have another setting there, which is you can just enforce security keys and just go with keys only. So there are options there for admins to consider in terms of how secure you want this to be. And of course, you can deploy those options in the admin console by organizational unit and group. So you can have an admins group and say they are all enforced with security keys. So there are options there for you to consider as administrators.
The other thing you might want to do is just audit the use of who's actually enrolled in two-step verification on your domain. Doing this is really easy. You've got reports in the admin console. So under app reports, you can click on accounts and you can see how many people have or have not enrolled in two-step verification. And if we go down to user reports and click on accounts, actually I'm not on my test domain at the moment, so I won't show you that page. But under the accounts page, you can filter by who's enrolled on two-step verification and then easily get a report out of that and contact those users who haven't set it up, whether that's just other super admins or if you're enrolling it out to all staff. You can easily let all those staff know that they need to set up two-step verification. And on the policy page, Charlie recommended, is this what you wanted to say, Charlie?
Yeah, I was just going to say that bit about you can also go and search in the audit investigation. You can go into, I think you can go into security, wherever it is. I'm pretty sure there's a report there. Well, maybe it's under security actually, or is it add users? I'd have to remember quickly. But anyway, there is a report that you can go into where you can actually filter the report on users involved in two-step verification and in two-step verification and admins in two-step verification as well. So you can actually filter that. You can bring up all your admin users and see who's got 2SV enabled and who hasn't. So there's a report in there for that.
Yeah, let me go I'm on my test domain now so I can show you. So in here we can see whether, let's get rid of these prompts, who's enrolled or not. And yeah, just add a filter, two-step verification enrollment. Let's set that to enrolled. Good. I've enrolled it on my own test domain, so
well done.
I'm reassured. This super admin account is pretty secure now. But yeah, as Charlie said earlier, you can manage all of your two-step verification options under security, authentication, and two-step verification. And there's lots of options in here to explore. And I think a really useful one is when you're first rolling it out to your staff, is to select this and say the date is going to turn on, because then Google takes care of all the messaging for you about reminding users to turn on two-step verification before it's enforced.
Yeah.
Right.
The only
caveat,
I was just going to say, Peter, and it's not a big deal, and I don't think it's a big deal at all. The only caveat on the date enforcement is that the date enforcement can sometimes slip 24 to 48 hours after the date you set. It's just Google catching up to the date you set. There's a caveat on it that it can take 24 hours to 48 hours to complete that enforcement across the domain. So if you did want a absolutely hard and fast date, you would go back in there and set it to the manual one if you needed that to happen.
Yeah, very good point. Cool. And we also just wanted to share some tips around the best ways of monitoring super admin activity. I'm sure you can trust all your admins, but it's just good to have these rules set up just so you've got awareness about what's happening on your domain. So one way you can do this is by setting up email alerts in the alert center. You might want to set up alerts for things like, let's say another admin gives someone else an admin role of some sort, whether that's for super admin role or a custom role. You can have an alert set up to let you know when that happens, just to give you a heads up and make sure that should definitely be happening. Or you could have an alert set up for example whenever someone uses the investigation tool. That's a really powerful tool you get with Education Plus. It lets you search for information on your domain, but it also lets you do some highly destructive things like deleting messages from user inboxes, for instance, or changing sharing permissions or ownership permissions. So it's just good to have oversight of these things. You don't want to be going to look at reports all the time manually, but having those notifications turned on for those really high these sensitive actions, it's just a good idea about getting kind of timely heads up when things happen. And you can do that through the audit logs. One way of doing it is if you create an investigation rule, that actually lets you create an activity rule from there and get notified. Or you can just go under rules on your account and you can see all the predefined rules which are built into Google Workspace, which I can show you if I switch to this tab instead and go to rules. In here we can see all the different rules we've already got defined which come as part of Google Workspace, but you can also define your own rules. So yeah, anything you can imagine which you can do in the investigation tool, you can also turn into an activity rule and get notifications about that. Did you have anything to add there before we move on, Charlie? Oh, you're on mute.
You think I remember that now these days? Right. So sorry, folks. Yeah, that report I was talking about, Peter, is under menu, reporting, reports, user reports, and then security. And in here, you can filter by admins. In the filter there, you can go to admin two-step verification. Yeah, so you can see the enrollment or not. So you can filter it there. And you can also identify, if you need to identify OUs and groups where two-step verification is not enforced, you can go into security, security center, and security health, and it will tell you there as well. I wouldn't do that in your domain, Peter, because it'll just take us ages to refresh. But
yeah, I don't have Education Plus in this domain either, so I can't see it, unfortunately.
But what I would say, folks, is I've just finished an admin support video on just this piece, which will go live shortly. So you'll be able to see that, a demo of that in the video.
And I think this is our last slide. So you may have heard of the Advanced Protection Program before. Just to be clear, first of all, this isn't something I would recommend for normal staff users. This is really designed for high value targets. So super admins, maybe senior leadership if they're being targeted by phishing. But what this does, it turns on several things on your Google account. So firstly, it enforces the use of two-step verification. So that must be turned on and used. But also really usefully, it limits what third-party apps you can use your super admin account with. So if it's not Google verified and trusted, it won't let you use it, which is a really good idea. Anything else to add there, Charlie?
Not really. I mean,
have I missed anything?
No, I think this is one of those things, right? If you want to just make sure you are absolutely protected, particularly your super admin accounts, this is one to go for and one to think about. I mean, it's those, as Peter says, it's the high value targets. It's all of that data that folks can get access to if they compromise that super admin. So you want to protect it. So this is the way to do it.